Hello, my name's Onuora, and I am going to read a memory. So, he strode towards me, tall and officious, and loomed above my head, invading my personal space. I took a step backwards in search of some respite from his overwhelming, dominant presence. But not to be outdone, he followed me until I could feel the cold of the phone box against my back. His colleague, silent up until this point, suddenly burst into life and stood in solidarity next to his colleague, pinning me into my tiny space between the phone box and the two-man barrier that had been so hastily erected. The second man was more aggressive than his colleague, jabbing his finger into my chest and then pointing to some event that had taken place somewhere up the street. He asked me the same questions as the first man, but with more menace and intimidation. As I tried to respond, the questions came thick and fast, disorientating and panicking me in equal measure. Do you think I was born yesterday? He demanded to know. I recognised this scenario from 100 conversations with 100 teachers and searched my memory bank for the answer that would appease him and relieve me from what was rapidly turning into a frightening ordeal. I tried to answer as he repeated the question again and again, but I knew nothing I said would satisfy him. The first man barked instructions, and I began to comply, but apparently not quickly enough for man number two, who spun me round and slammed my 14-year-old body into the phone box, placing his knee into my back while holding both of my arms, as the straight man in his weird double act immobilized my hands and then rifled through my pockets, pulling out the contents and tossing them casually onto the floor. The wild one then spun me round to face them, and planted his face half an inch from mine, screaming demands and insults and drenching me with cigarette breath and spit. The straight man undid my trainers, took them off, rummaged around and tossed them aside near the coins, keys and bus pass that had been discarded earlier. A car stopped abruptly and two of its occupants emerged. They spoke to the double act for a minute or two and began to turn their attention elsewhere. The straight one was calm, telling me that I was lucky, that they were doing me a favour, and that I wouldn't be so lucky if they saw me again. I gathered my belongings, zipped up my coat, and headed for home. Nobody was to know about this if I was to ever venture outside again. That was going to be the small take from a very, very big lesson that I had learned, and somehow, far away from my 21st birthday, I'd come of age. Okay, the next one is called The Cat's Tail. Lying on the sofa, all curled up and meek, but in my fairy fuzzy head there's a rapping beat. She walks and she's assertive and opens up the door. He's quite scared and furtive, at least that's what I saw. He asks her if it's safe to enter. She smiles and nods her head. She shuts the door behind him and turned to him and said, "He's back in half an hour, so we better be quite quick. His mood was pretty sour, so let's not take the mick." He pulls her close towards him and she melts in his arms. He kisses her quite softly. They collapse. He kisses her quite softly. She gives in to his charms. "How very rude is this guy?" as he shoves me to the floor. They collapse onto the sofa and he cries a mighty roar. A shoe lands close beside me. It almost hits my head. A dress lands on the light stand and makes the room glow red. Humans are disgusting when they do the things they do. I want to cover up my ears, but my paws won't allow me to. I try to leave the room, but the door's been firmly closed. The two of them are wriggling round, not wearing any clothes. For 6 weeks it's been like this. He comes in from the street. He beats a rap upon her door. He never wipes his feet. But somewhere out of nowhere, a man comes through the door. A punch, a kick, commotion, and they end up on the floor. Now these two guys are wriggling round, but one of them has clothes on. She's screaming loud and getting dressed, and suddenly one man's gone. I get kicked across the room as the two of them start to shout. It's not my fault, I'm just the cat. I gave no secrets out.